to the woman, okay, it's important for women to have skills, to have education, and so on, but doesn't mean that they neglect their children and leave them to the society to bring them up, childcare centers and preschools, and they take care of all that, and even before and after school programs, so that she can work full time, so that they can earn it. Is that really necessary, or are we going after the certain luxuries in life that we could do with that? These are things that we need to assess. And so, as a result of going after those luxuries, our children end up being neglected. Now, what happens if the husband dies? Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sustainer. He will never, أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِكَافٍ عَبْدَهُ. We did what we did at the time that we did it because we wanted to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We wanted to do our best in raising our children. Now when it comes to taking care of us financially, He'll take care of it. The community gets aware of it, then they help out. Other means, somebody comes and decides that he wants to marry this woman and take care of the children, or somebody comes to sponsor them. In any way, they will be taken care of, or she will then start finding herself a means of earning some sustenance or some income, and you never know, she might end up being an entrepreneur that in no time she makes so much money, more than what her husband would have ever made. Allahu A'lam. So we need to have reliance of on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At any given time, we do our duty. The hadith says, do act for the day, اعمل لدنياك كأنك تعيش أبدا. Act like you're living here forever, and act for akhirah like you're dying tomorrow. So that akhirah is a priority because the deadline is tomorrow. But at the same time, we have the dunya and we work for it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of it. Every day you do your duty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not expect, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Does not expect anyone to do anything beyond what they're capable of. Okay? So if He expects us as parents to take care of our children, if He expects the mother to take care of her children, okay? If He says, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضَعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ. This is a side issue that we didn't discuss as we were going through those stages. One of the rights of the children is the 2 years of nursing. يُرْضَعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ. In another ayah, وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شهرا. So the Amir al-Mu'mineen says 24 months is the nursing and 6 months is the minimal pregnancy. So the 24 months stays intact. Okay, so they let them do it. Nowadays they come up with so many things, so many excuses that scientifically after 6 months they don't need it, or after some of them even bring it before that, and all of these talks that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. The Quran is clear in there. This is the duty. Okay, I'm not saying it's a wajib that if they don't do it, it's haram. I'm not making a fatwa here. But I'm saying this is the recommendation from the Holy Quran. That's why we have the maraja. They look at the different the ayat and the riwayat, and they give you that they say that the minimum is 1.5 and the maximum is the 2 years, and the 21 month is basically the average or recommendation. In any case, we need to do that. We need to make sure that we are doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says and what Ahlul Bayt teach us, and then leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He'll take care of it, whether it's the woman having to earn her sustenance if she becomes a widow or something, or the man himself if he decides that, I want to spend some time with the family, I want to spend some time doing my ibadah, and I don't want to overdo the work thing. So I work, but in moderation. Al-ijmal fi talab is one of the riwayat. I hope that answers the question of the lady that asked the question. And if there are any other questions, as I said, I wanted it to be a discussion. Yes. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'll just reiterate the question. The question is, at what age should we introduce Quran to the children, in brief? And I think we had some examples of Ahlul Bayt and how they taught. And the examples are, I would say, as early as they were teaching them the basic concepts, okay, basic concept of numbers, basic concepts of letters, okay, then you would introduce some level. So you want to raise consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Quran from as early as they can actually speak, as early as they can utter anything, okay? So I often hear people, for instance, that when they want to teach the child, the letters, that you have the A for apple, they say A, Allah, for example, okay? Ba, Bismillah, for example, rather than Ba for, I don't know, bananas or whatever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with bananas, but as early as they can utter anything, you start teaching them those concepts. And then as they start reasoning, now before reasoning, we start teaching, often you'll find that many families, they start teaching them the short surahs, okay? At that level, it's just to bless their minds with Quran. We have a child just born, and the recommendation is you do adhan in one ear and the iqamah in the left. Okay, what is happening there? Is he going to learn something from that? Perhaps not in the conscious sense, but in the subconscious sense, maybe they will learn, and maybe their body and their anatomy is actually getting purified through that. We don't know how it works. So we teach them Quran as soon as they can utter any words. That's in terms of just simply learning the ayat and the uttering of it and the memorizing of some surahs. The concept of the ayat, again, as soon as they start reasoning, you start teaching them that. Okay, so as early as they actually understand any concept, you bring the concepts to them, and you bring the concept of the day of judgment, you bring the concept of the hell and heaven, you bring the concept of God watching over us, God seeing everything, hearing everything. You bring this concept as early as we can, as early as they can reason. And even some people try to hide certain things. In fact, I was asked once about death, and I shared this myself with my son as he was very young, and we were speaking of death. And in the beginning, we were speaking of actually Surah Al-Waqi'ah. So I was sharing with him the meaning of Surah Al-Waqi'ah. I think he was 4 or 5 at the time. And so it came up, death came up, and he said, are we all going to die? Am I going to die? And he was very upset. He was, in fact, he started crying when I said, yes, we're all going to. But then eventually I explained to him that death is not the end, because at the first instance, they think death is the end, so they don't like it. They think, oh, wow, some people try to hide it. Even when somebody dies, they try to make up stories. So it's not. We have to explain it to them in a way that they can understand it. Okay, so I explained to him that death is not the end. We go to better places if we're good. If we're bad, we go to very bad places. But if we're good, we go to better places. And as part of the discussion, because he loved Nutella, I said to him, you'll have rivers of Nutella. We have rivers of milk. So basically, just in their language, you can explain to them what they are to expect in terms of heaven and hell. So I think that as early as they can reason, you can introduce Quran. Any questions? Any other questions? Yes? No problem. Ahsan. Very good. So the role of the father as compared to the role of the mother. Obviously, the number one basically provider of the love and affection is the mother, and that's natural. That's very natural. They from the nursing aspect to the caring to the cleaning and bathing and all these things, all these connections. Now, I like in the Western cultures, they have certain things that they've introduced which I like, and I think this goes well with the way the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt were with their children. In some of our Eastern cultures, some of them, they are very, the man has, it's almost like a shame for the man to get involved in many things. So in the Western culture, they have the man coming in even in the room of the labor and cutting the cord. I don't know, I got involved in to an extent. I'm not encouraging or discouraging, okay? I'm not going to give any opinions here. But some levels of involvement, even at that level and even in the beginning, is very important. And we see that, as soon as the babies were born in the house of the Prophet and they were cleaned, then they were brought, and I mean what I said, they were clean, and they were brought then to the father, and then the father was brought them to the grandfather. So they were getting involved with them emotionally from there, from very early on, and doing the recommended acts and so on. Then we read of in the history that even when they cried, that sometimes the father would attend to them and rock their cradle or something, or even the grandfather, even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would get involved doing that. So it wasn't, that's the mother's job. And yes, we do have the, that hadith that the Prophet said, inside the house it's Sayyidah Zahra, outside it's Amirul Mu'mineen salamullah alayhima. But at the same time, there's an element of help and an element of involvement, especially with the children. And we'll find a lot of riwayat, the Prophet feeding them even, putting them in his bosom and feeding them. Especially when you have few children, then I guess there's no choice but to have more and more involvement. I hope that answers it. Any other question? We have, I think, 3 or 4 minutes, so if there are any other questions. Yes. Very good, Ahsantum. That's a very good question, actually. In terms of gender roles in the children, as children are growing up in the house, should we tell them that this is the boy, he does certain things, and this is the girl, or should they both be neutral in doing things and so on? I grew up in an environment where we were expected all to help. Okay, so it was not acceptable that the boys sit down and the girls get up and do the housework. It was not set like that, and I think this is the Islamic model, because again, although when she goes to the husband's house, she is going to take care of the home while he takes care of the sustenance and earning the sustenance and bringing it home. But even in that environment, they need to know that if she needs help, he has to step in and help. So he needs to learn that, and he needs to understand that. I've been in environments where I think it's completely un-Islamic. The girls, from the young to the mother and the daughters, their role is to take care of everything while the men sit and do nothing, including children, boys in the family. So the girls in the family go and serve their brother, because that's their role. That is, I believe, it's un-Islamic. It's not what the Ahlul Bayt taught us. It's not what is expected, and it's inhumane, in fact. I've seen it in some areas. It's very inhumane. The boys go out for work. Okay, I understand, but the elder ones. But the younger ones go out and play. And then when they come back home, the girls have been cooking and cleaning all day, and now the girls have to take care of all the, putting the food and packing and dishes and so on, because boys should not touch anything. I don't think this is Islamic or even humane. I think that's something that needs to change, if that's what you're referring to. I think it's a shared concept. They're together in the house. They have to share the house chores and so on. If that's the question, unless you're referring to another aspect. Oh, okay, okay. So in terms of some things, yes, in Islam, in fact, we have a hadith that tell us that we need to teach the girls certain things and teach the boys certain things. Okay, so you teach the girls things that are more artistic and more to do with, maybe knitting and sewing and, the girly things. And, you teach the boys archery and, the horse riding and so on. And so there we have a hadith that clearly state that these have to be taught separately, not made to be the same. And I think there's, to an extent, people get that wrong. Their girl, they want to have her play soccer, they want to have her. I understand, sports are good, but there are sports that are more towards, the girl and girly, and there are things that are more masculine, and I think we need to establish that and direct them in the right way. And Islam does, we do have a hadith that clearly give us those differences. I think it's adhan time, so we'll have to finish with that. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.